Welcome, Merritt family, and thank you for coming to our Women's History Month celebration, sponsored by Puente Club, the Puente Project, and supported by the Student Associates of Merritt College, Inner Club Council, Pi Theta Kappa, and the Black Student Union.
Hello everyone, my name is Ana Ivy Peña and I'm the co-president of Puente, and I'm going to introduce to you guys Denise Davis II. She's a Merritt College full-time student, and in 2007, Ms. Davis graduated from James Logan High School in Union City. She has dedicated her time to move out of the blind community and more into the sighted community. At age 21, Ms. Davis emerged into the sighted community, working at jobs like Old Navy, Gap, Unico. Ms. Davis is a student in Professor Santana's English 201 preparation for composition and reading, where she is developing her reading, writing, and critical thinking skills. Ms. Davis will now share with you her personal, academic, and a spiritual journey. So let us welcome Ms. Denise Davis with a very warm round of applause.
Close. Hi y'all, how are you doing?
Wow.
I'm sorry, I'm blind and I didn't even hear that. How are you doing?
Good, how you doing?
1%. Oh, okay, I'm just making sure my senses are working. Okay. My name is Denise Michelle Davis II, and I am 25 years old. I was born with a visual impairment called aniridia. Aniridia is 1 in 60,000. Basically, it is an eye disability in which the pupils do not contrast and excess light gets in. With the excess light that does get in, scars develop on my cornea, and there is no proper surgery to remove the scars. The doctor has diagnosed that I could go blind any day now. And growing up, I had a friend who had a similar disability, eye disability, and when waking up, her vision was just as well as mine. And by the time she came home from school, she was completely blind. Living a life of blindness, I would say, is my biggest fear. And I always feared I'd die alone because no one would ever see me for who I wanted to be. When growing up, I grew up the first out of 8 children. And so many people say to me, wow, that's great. You must be so excited to have so many siblings. What's the best part about being the first? And I always say I was the first to get out. Growing up, you're supposed to have parents who inspire you and parents who help show you the way. I'm very sad to say that I didn't have that. However, I'm very happy to say that by not having that, it showed me how to be that much more stronger. At the age of 5, I saw my 3-year-old sister get murdered. And when my mom came home from the nightclub in which she insisted on going to, she swung open the door and slapped me across the face and told me that if I would have called 911, my sister would still be alive today. Throughout my life in schooling, I've always had teachers who have passed me along because they didn't care. I would sleep in class, I would doodle in class. I didn't even have to go to class to know I would pass. Throughout my life, knowing that this was a constant thing that I would be able to do, I learned to work the system. And through doing that, I was able to graduate high school. I was able to pass along and convince myself that I was okay to be in this blind world because that's all anyone ever saw me as. At the age of 21, I developed a very, very bad alcoholic problem. And when I say bad, I mean bad. Now, it's funny because a lot of people insist that someone who is blind or visually impaired could never go out and drink and do these things by themselves. For we have these ideas of what blind, visually impaired, and partially sighted is. Now, my sight isn't great, but I can definitely see enough to see images in front of me and words and people and expressions in life. Throughout this alcoholic tendency, I continued to drag myself down. And by dragging myself down, I continued to fail in school. And by continuing to fail in school, I allowed myself to do so because I felt it was all I ever deserved. My mother always told me that I would only ever be a blind bitch, only good enough to lay on my back. That I should have had kids before I graduated high school, and no one would ever see me as anything more than a slut. Today, at the age of 25, I have traveled multiple parts of the world, including Bulgaria, Costa Rica, France, Paris, Amsterdam, and other beautiful countries. By being honest with myself and being able to overcome my alcoholic problem and seeing that disability is who I am, it's part of who I am, but it's not who I am. I am an independent, strong, Black woman. And don't you mess with that. So, by leading this message, I want to be able to convey that forgiveness is possible. And sometimes we're always looking for someone else to forgive us. And sometimes it's looking inside of ourselves and forgiving ourselves first. When wanting to come back to school, I didn't think it was possible. I would go to school and use the financial aid money to buy a bunch of liquor. And when coming back to Merritt College, coming to Merritt College for the first time, it took someone else believing in me when I had already given up on myself to see that I still had a chance, that I was worthy of a chance. So when you leave these rooms today and you see people you don't understand, don't make assumptions. When you look at yourself and see an imperfection, don't take it personally, but take it as a step in the right direction, that you can acknowledge this. You can rise above this, and you can be better. In AA, we always say it's one day at a time. So enjoy the rest of your first day. Thank you.
The next person that I'm presenting to speak is one of my actual close friends. In 2008, this young woman from Oakland, California faced a life-changing tragedy. Ms. Gutierrez was shot in the face and almost killed in a drive-by shooting. From a troubled youth to a traumatized victim, she has been through so many obstacles to heal herself and to overcome her fear, her near-death experience. Gutierrez today works with our youth through Oakland and the Bay Area and is a community leader. She is a young woman trying to help heal not only our neighborhoods that are filled with violence, but our youth who are long losing their lives. Devoted to make a change, she volunteers all through Oakland and helps speak out to students in other communities and is a leader in ours. Please welcome Ms. Gutierrez.
Today, I'm going to share with you guys my personal testimony of overcoming violence. I'm going to talk about the topic violence because, as you guys may know, it's something that is very prevalent in Oakland. So raise your hand if you know somebody who's been affected by gun violence or has been murdered due to gun violence. You want to look around, it's most of us. It's something that affects us every year, and especially our youth. On November 20th, 2008, I was 18 years old. I was just getting out of school, I was hopping on the bus, and I get a call from my mom. And she's like, Carrie, can you help me clean one of the offices? Because my mom worked 3 jobs. I was like, okay, Mom, I'll help you. She used to clean an office over by the Oakland airport. And so I went home, I did my homework, I watched TV, and then as the evening approached, I called one of my friends and I asked him if he could give me a ride to the office because I didn't drive back then. So he was like, yeah, it's all good, I'll take you. So I knew that this dude had a crush on me and I didn't want him to like try to kiss me or nothing like that. So I called my best friend and I was like, dude, you have to come with me. Like, just come, it's gonna be really quick. All I'm gonna do is just wash dishes and sweep or whatever, and then we're out. So she's like, okay. So she came along with us. We got off on Golf Links and we were just driving down 98th Boulevard. We passed up MacArthur, we passed up Bancroft, we passed up East 14. And as we approached 98th and San Leandro Boulevard, I'm sitting in the passenger side, he's driving, and my best friend is in the back seat. We stop at the light, and the next thing that I feel is shocks coming from the top of my head to the bottom of my feet. Like intense electricity running through my body, so much that it was like paralyzing me. And at the moment, I couldn't make sense of it. I'm like, what is it? What's going on? Like, I'm trying to figure out what's going on. And then I hear my best friend and my friend screaming. They're screaming, oh my God, help, oh my God. So I react, and I look over to him, and the arm that he was driving with has a huge bullet hole. And blood is just, spilling out. And the first thing that I did was to reach over and try to help him because he was just, screaming and he was driving. So first thing that I do is reach over to try to help. And when he looked at me, he pulled back and just gave me an expression like as if he just saw a ghost. He couldn't even look at me. And then he said, Carrie, he's like not even trying to look at me. He's like, Carrie, it's you, they shot you. And he's like, you can't look at me. So immediately I started touching myself, like, what shot me? I touched my face and my hand slipped into my face. And at that moment, it all came to me. I started, feeling the rest of my body, and I started to pick up chunks of meat off my chest. You know what that felt like? If you were to put your tongue against your cheek and you feel that soft tissue, that's what it felt like. That's what I was picking up off of my chest. I sit back and I look at the dashboard, and on the dashboard I see bone. Excuse me. I see bone. I see teeth. I see more meat and blood everywhere. So I was shot in the right region of my face, maxillomandible. Am I right? Right? I was hit with a hollow tip bullet that just exploded the right side of my face. And I was bleeding nonstop. Immediately, I just started to feel super, super weak. I was losing so much blood, like everything seemed like a movie. The lights just got blurry, and I could not believe it. I remember picking up my hands and being like, okay, move your fingers, like try to stay here. And at that point, I couldn't even move my fingers, like my fingers were just stuck like this. And I was like, this is it. I just hope that my mom knows that I didn't die in any pain, because at that moment, my body was giving me that fight or flight response, so I didn't feel anything. The ambulance got there, transported me to Highland Hospital. I was awake through the whole thing. I remember holding onto my face in the paramedic truck, and the paramedic asked me to move my body, so I let go of my jaw, and I just saw my whole jaw collapse onto her boob. And I looked at her and I was just like, oh my God, you know, unbelievable. I was in a coma for 5 days and hospitalized for over a month. I had to undergo 6 reconstructive surgeries. A lot of my students ask me, like, what did this scar come from? Did you get shot in your neck? And this scar actually came from, because my face was so swollen and air couldn't come out of my nose or my mouth, they had to pierce a tube in my throat in order for me to breathe. They call this the trachea. Yeah. And I had screws all over my face to hold my facial structure. The right side of my face was paralyzed. My eardrum blew out. When I woke up, my hands were tied to the hospital bed. So this experience not only changed me physically, because, you know, I walk around with these scars on my face, and sometimes it's hard to look in the mirror. I mean, on a daily basis, a regular girl, if you have a pimple on your face, you're like, I'm not going to school. Like, give me some concealer. Let's go to Mac right now, you know? So imagine going one day from, you know, you have this look, this identity that you're comfortable with. You've been living like this for a few years. And then you go from that to some facial deformity. It was very hard on me. It was also hard on me mentally. I was suffering with a disorder named PTSD. So I was having these like serious nightmares, and I could never go to sleep. I couldn't eat. I had like this emotional numbing. I didn't want to go out. I was super paranoid and afraid. I even thought about ending my life. Like, I was just so unhappy with who I was now that I was like, why did I even survive? Why am I even here? Until a case manager, you know, suggested that I should go into therapy. And so I really trusted her. And I was like, all right, let's give it a try. And so, you know, during therapy, my therapist was, you know, very strategic, and we worked really hard to kind of figure out what was going on with me and help me overcome this trauma that I was going through. So after a few years and long, intense therapy sessions, I was able to just overcome. And eventually I got into the field of violence prevention, where I share my story to you know, numerous youth in OUSD, and I case manage young people who are facing adversity similar to the ones that people in our community face, like gang banging, you know, poverty, broken homes. You know, I share my story in hopes that you will be inspired, just like the rest of these beautiful women who shared their stories. You'll be inspired that everybody has a story. Everybody goes through something. But that single experience doesn't make you who you, it doesn't determine your future. It's not everything that you are. It makes you, but you can definitely continue and use that experience as a tool. It makes you stronger, absolutely. I want to end with a quote that I thought was very suitable for today. A strong woman understands that the gifts such as logic, decisiveness, and strength are just as feminine as intuition and emotional connection. She values and uses all of her gifts. Thank you.
Our keynote speaker for today, her name is Carla Trujillo. Carla was born in New Mexico and received a PhD in educational psychology from the University of Wisconsin, Madison. Her dissertation focused on assessing differential treatment of underrepresented students in college classrooms. She is the editor of Chicana Lesbians, the girl our mothers warned us about. The anthology is now in its third printing and has won the Lambda Book Award for Best Lesbian Anthology and Outright Vanguard Award from the Best Pioneer Contribution to the field of gay, lesbian, lifestyle literature in 1991. Trujillo is also the editor of Living Chicana Theory from 1998, Third Woman Press, and is the author of several short stories and various articles on identity, sexuality, and higher education. She works as the director of the Graduate Diversity Program at UC Berkeley and has focused some of her recent activities on improving the classroom's climate for unrepresented students in the College of Engineering using interactive theater. She has lectured in ethnic studies at UC Berkeley and Mills College, in women's studies at San Francisco State University. Her novel, What Night Brings, which was published by Curbstone Press in April 2003, has won the Miguel Marmol's Prize issued by Curbstone Press for Latino, a fiction focusing on human rights. Let's give Carla Trujillo a very warm Merritt College welcome.
Hi everyone. Thank you for bringing me here today. It's my pleasure to come up to what feels like the top of the world. It's really amazing, the view. I'm very, very humbled to be here, particularly with the stories I just heard from all the women who have testified before me, really. And the stories that you shared were remarkable, challenging, inspirational. And I hope that their stories will continue to inspire all of you here and to anyone that you touch in your lives beyond this room. I don't know if I can live up to what was just shared, but I will give you perhaps a semblance of my story and the stories that I see every day in the people I encounter. I too grew up with a lot of violence, and we were very poor. I grew up in Vallejo, B-Town. I went to public high school, and Vallejo High School, and there was a lot of guns in my life, and a lot of things that I think challenged not only me, but my sister, my brother, my mother, and cousins. I think that having these kinds of challenges, particularly with a father who was very unpredictable, made my life also somewhat unpredictable, except there were a couple things that kept me sane. And one was that I liked books. The reason I liked them is that I could escape. I could escape into books. And I started doing it early so that I could dive away and stay away from this crazy world. And I liked school. But my school was violent too, so there was always some new challenge. But anyway, I became inspired by a lot of people that right then, you know, there was all kinds of things happening in our country. People were they landed on the moon when I was little, and people were, you know, fighting for different rights. The Black Panthers, and I see Huey Newton up there in the poster, and the Brown Berets, and I remember like I was hanging out with a group of Latinas, and we got these little patches for our jackets that said Chicano Power, and so we just thought we were really tough. And my friends, and we had a good time. But I somehow kept getting these A grades. I don't know how they happened. And my friends made fun of me for getting A grades. But not my parents. They really wanted me to do more with myself. So I went to UC Davis. I graduated from high school, and I managed to get into UC Davis, and I also wanted to do pre-med, and I ended up going into human development. And I figured out I liked working with the mind more than anything else, and so I jumped into educational psychology, and I decided I would go to grad school, and I wanted to go someplace far away. I think it was my way to escape, because Vallejo, UC Davis, not so far, right? And that was about as far as I thought I could get. And I thought maybe I could do Berkeley, but it was too close to home, and I thought my dad would make me commute, and I didn't want to live at home anymore. So I thought, okay. And I was, I had these jobs that were in student service, and I had different kinds. I also worked in the dining commons. That was like my very first job, like in the dining commons. And I did that for 3 years because I knew that somehow it felt familiar because I was a waitress in high school. So I had these other jobs though, and in those jobs in student services and advising, I met people that talked about going far away for grad school. And a lot of these people were from places and homes where they had a lot more money than I did. My dad worked at C&H Sugar Refinery. He was a factory worker. And my mom worked as a clerk at Kaiser Hospital. So I was listening to them. They were talking about the London School of Economics and, Harvard and Ohio. And I'm thinking, all these states far away, I'm going to apply to them too. So I would always be listening to them and watching, and I said, I'm going to apply. So I applied to these other campuses. I had these great faculty mentors, these several faculty who took me under their wing and encouraged me, like the faculty members here who encouraged you, and also some of you others who spoke earlier. So I decided I got into every school I applied to, which was quite an achievement only because, I'm telling you this, I was on academic probation my freshman year, and I'm not proud of that. I worked really hard, but I was playing too much. And so when I realized that I might not make it through Davis, my father was very disappointed, and he said, I'm really sorry to hear that. And I go, oh God, I know my mom must feel bad too. So I decided to marry the library. So I married the library, and I did a lot of work that I should have been doing. I got off AP, and then got into these campuses across the country, and I decided to go to Wisconsin. So you can only imagine how cold that was, and how white that was, in so many different ways. And so there I was. I go to this strange place. I don't know anyone. And when I was at Davis, by the time I left, I had so many cool jobs. I could walk across the campus and say hi to all kinds of folks. Hi, how you doing? Hi, how you doing? At Wisconsin, I didn't know anyone. I was so lonely, I would talk to the bus driver. Now, bus drivers don't want to talk to anybody. So that was really lonely that I was saying, so how's your day going? So it was really rough, at first. And then I made friends with the women's rugby team. And that was 15 instant friends. And it did help. So while I was in Wisconsin, though, I made friends with a guy who he grew up rich. In fact, he told me, he was in my department, that his father was a millionaire. And I said, gosh, I've never met anybody whose father was a millionaire before. And this guy was white and very sweet, very friendly. And he was in my class. He was always so nice. And he would always think about what he wanted and how he would get it. And I thought, I don't think that way. I kind of just happen in the moment all the time. And, you know, I work hard, but I'm always sort of in the moment. But this guy was, anywhere he went, always was getting what he wanted, thought about it, including like we'd go out for dinner, and he'd say, you know, can I have my food this way, please? Real sweet. And after we're done, can I have a chocolate chip cookie to go? And I'm like, oh, okay, so he does this. So one day we were walking around, and we were about 3 years into our program, and I asked him his story. I said, so let me see if I can recap this. You and I are working on our dissertations, and you wanted to take a class from a really famous guy in the School of Business. And the School of Business told him, no, nobody can take a class unless you're in the School of Business. And undeterred, you went and spoke to the faculty member that you wanted to take the class from. And you explained why. This guy was a world expert in the field he wanted to study. And the man said, sure, you could take my class. I can overrule the School of Business rules. You're in my class. And next thing you know, takes another class. And next thing you know, this real famous professor is on his dissertation committee, and you have to do an advanced research study and write this dissertation to get a PhD. And I'm thinking, so wait a minute, you were told no, and you convinced the professor, he took another class, and now he's on your committee? He says, yeah, like it's normal, right? And I thought to myself, would I have done that? And the answer would have been no. I would have taken that first no that they told me and walked out the door sad. So I decided, without telling my friend Rick, that I would do an experiment. I would do this experiment, and for the next 24 hours, I would pretend that I was him, making any kind of decision throughout the day. What would Rick do, I told myself as I got up and did everything. Go to school, do this, get my lunch. Everything I thought that whole day was like my friend Rick. And it made me think about my dissertation, it made me think about my advisors, it made me think about what I needed, what I wanted, what would be best for me to advance. Clear down on what kind of sandwich I wanted, and could I please have it on whole wheat bread, and so on. At the end of the day, I used to be a runner, so I had run 5 miles, and I went out with my friend, and we went out to dinner, and dinner was taking a heck of a long time. I was looking at my watch, and the old me would just sit there and fume. Really upset, I'm really hungry, when's this food coming? But the new me was, what would Rick do? So I said, excuse me, sir. I called the waiter over and I said, dinner seems to be taking so long. Do you mind checking on it to see how things are going? Now, was that nice? He said, certainly, I'll be right back. Comes back, he goes, I am so sorry. He explained whatever the delay was. I don't remember, it was a long time ago. And he says, to make it up to you, though, not only will your food be out, but your dessert is on me. I said, dessert's on him? I'm doing this experiment now every day of my life. I'm sold. So after that, I just went through life as if, you know, I was gonna like think about my goals and plan how to best achieve them. What could I do? What did I need? But I was not gonna do it in any kind of self-centered way, of course, because that's not my way. My way was to like figure out how I could nicely figure out how to talk to the right people. And if I didn't know the answer, I would ask. I would go to people who knew more than me, who had been pioneers or folks who had done something in a way that I wanted. So I would take people to lunch, and I would take people to dinner, and I'd pick their brains about how to get something that I needed next and how to do something. So I was changed forever just by inhabiting the personality of somebody who was different than me. And I'm not telling you to model yourself after a rich white male. I am, however, saying to think about people who grow up in privilege, who grow up with an entitled sense of what they want in life, and to take how they think about where they're going and how they're doing things, and using that as your incentive. because it can make a difference. After I finished my PhD, which was not easy, by the way, I had different challenges that I won't go into here. I came back to the Bay Area, and I worked part-time in the blood bank till I could get a real job. And I got a job on the Berkeley campus. And I knew I wanted to be a therapist. I wanted to be a clinician. So I thought, I haven't really have this job. Now what am I going to do? So I wanted to get clinical hours. You need like a lot of hours. So I talked my way into getting a postdoc at the counseling center. And they never ever had postdocs before. They only had pre-doctoral students. So because I decided to get over the fear of asking for what I want, because I could intellectually understand that I should ask for something. I think Maria, or you saying, I know I need to do something, I know I should be talking to people, but for me there was a lot of fear involved. When you grow up poor sometimes, and you don't have enough food, or you can only wear the kind of clothes your parents can afford, you take what you get. That food is what your mom makes, that's what you eat. So I was used to taking whatever was given to me and having to accept it, even if I didn't like it. So I thought about the issue. If I don't ask the question that I want, the request, if I have a request and I never ask it, the answer is no. Right? It's no anyway. So if I ask and then I support my question, maybe I'll get a different response. So that's how I did it. That's how I got beyond fear. And sometimes I can still walk into a meeting, I can still meet like somebody famous, and I can say, you know, if I never say anything, it's no anyway. But if I say yes, if I think about asking, it might be yes. So I just created a rationale, I did my research, I talked to the man in charge, and he told me, I'll have to think about it and talk to the director. And I said, okay. Followed up with my CV, another letter saying I'm interested, hope you will reconsider, blah, 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 this whole positive kind of spin. He talks to the director, and he goes, guess what? We're going to let you do the postdoc. We've never had this before. I'm a little surprised myself, he says. I go in and I start getting the hours. Now, I decided after 1.5 years of training I didn't want to be a clinician, and now work as the assistant dean for graduate diversity. But you know, sometimes, like when you're young, you don't always know everything that you want to do, and you have to explore and try things. And that's what it did. So in my job, I see people who work hard, and despite struggling to pay their tuition and their rent and their books, they have dreams. I work almost entirely with underrepresented students of color, such as what's in this room. And people have dreams to someday make a difference. I think all of us are put here on this earth to do something that will better the world, better the people we work with, better life. I've worked in engineering, and now I work in the graduate division. And I always see people trying new things, or somebody who wants to be a therapist, or a counselor, or a teacher. And I think that you too are on the cusp of creating change in how you live your life, and how you're setting goals now, and how you want to achieve them. Whenever somebody told me I couldn't do something, you know what I did with that. I remember working in high school, and the guys working there would say, hey, you know what, you're going to go to Davis, I know what degree you're going to get, an MRS. And I said, excuse me? No, I hear you talking, I hear what you're saying, but you're just going to get an MRS. And I said, I don't think so. Still haven't got one today. Although my parents probably wished differently on that one. So I had a lot of setbacks and struggles. One year in graduate school, I was so poor and I was out of job. I said, I've got to get some money to pay the rent. And I had this saying, and I took it from Malcolm X, by any means necessary. By any means necessary, I am getting this degree. And I don't care what it takes. And my uncle, he got an MSW, and my mom says, you know, your Uncle Joe, he worked as a custodian to help support himself and his family. And I said, if Uncle Joe could do it, I could do it. So I went to a women's clothing store, and I wanted a job. And she goes, the only job I have is custodian, janitor. And I said, what did Malcolm X say to you, Carla? Not me directly, but okay, I'll take that janitor job because I need to pay the rent. And, but I'm letting you know, I told the manager, I might become a teaching assistant in January. They might select me. Okay, she said. And I'm used to people not believing me, you know, like, yeah, okay, sure. So one of the greatest moments of my life came while I was finishing vacuuming, and it's amazing when you're at a women's clothing store, the things you have to do to clean up. And I didn't know that you have to polish. You know when you're like doing the clothes and you're moving them to just see what kind of clothes you want? You know how they slide easy? That's because somebody gets wax paper and polishes the spot. That was me. So one of the greatest times happened was when I found out, we're going to hire you as a TA. And you get not only all this money, you get your tuition paid for. And I was like, that's great. So I walked in and told that manager, guess what? I'm quitting. And she's like, no. And I said, yeah, I am. I'm going to be a TA. See ya. So no, I gave her a little more than an hour notice. Finish my shift. I had to be fair, you know. So you know nothing of achievement. You all know this. Nothing of achievement is ever easy. I wanted to learn how to write fiction. I could not write worth a darn. I don't know how I graduated from high school the way I wrote. And I decided I wanted to write better. And I took more classes, and I kept studying, and I took more classes, and I kept writing, and it was bad at first, and I kept on, and I kept taking more classes, and then suddenly I ended up in classes with Sandra Cisneros. Some of you might have heard of her. She wrote a book called The House on Mango Street, along with many more, and she became my teacher. And I want to encourage you that if you want to become a writer or a poet or a photographer or a doctor or a lawyer or an engineer, a social worker, a teacher, whatever your dream is, to get maybe a PhD in art history, you make a plan, find the steps to get to your plan, talk to people who will help you along the way, and do not be afraid to speak to people about your desires and goals. You might have to marry the library, like I did, but when you study hard, the thing that stands out, and I used to tell the women this, in engineering all the years I worked with people of color, women of color, and they would tell me, gosh, you know, like some of these faculty, I can tell they don't want me here. They don't think that women can be engineers, that men of color can be engineers or scientists. And I said, you know what's going to count? Your work. And I still say this to people. Anytime you think somebody is not going to value you, it's your work. And let your work matter. As soon as you start talking about the numbers or the work, the faculty start forgetting that they're talking to somebody who's different than them. They start seeing somebody speak about the work, your work. I tell students all the time, as soon as your eyes light up, their eyes will light up. The faculty in any university that you attend are there to teach and there to do research. They have PhDs, most of them, or master's degrees. They can go work for companies and make a lot more money, but they're there teaching and they're doing research. My boss, he's the Vice Chancellor for Equity and Inclusion. His name is Gabor Basri. He's also an astrophysicist. So he's spent years, you know, in observatories looking at God knows what. And so, you know, I've spent so many meetings with him. He's a really nice guy, mild-mannered, always all these diversity issues because we work on diversity. And, you know, he's a vice chancellor and, you know, he just seems like a great guy. And then one day I was introducing him to a room about this big. There's a big audience. I was the MC, and I said, Gibor, what is it you study again? Talk to me. So I was doing it, you know, quietly, like, Gibor, talk to me. And I was taking notes so I could introduce him. Tell me about what you're studying. And he goes, well, okay, I'm studying blah, 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 you know, and I'm studying, you know, stars that are forming, and I'm studying, you know, planets, blah, 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 that are being discovered, and his whole face changed. And I said, he's so in love with his work. That's what I encourage you to do. Find that spark. Find the something that you care about and go into that, so when you think about it and your eyes light up, somebody else who listens to you, their eyes are going to light up too. I was inspired by him. The other day when I introduced him to a big event, I found out when I looked him up online that he's already discovered 20 planets, Earth-sized planets. I didn't even know we had one, and he's discovered 20. So you, just like me, I am the only person in my family to have gone to college. I have a brother and sister who went to jail. They were drug addicts. I only have one brother and one sister. I was the oddball because I went to college. I was the only person in my extended family who went to college. I'm the only person who went to graduate school. Up until on my mom's side of the family, my other cousin went to graduate school. In my high school, pretty much, I think out of 400 people, 10 people went to college out of 400. So in my neighborhood, I was the strange one. But that's okay. You know, I'm not the first. There are lots of people who were the first, far beyond me, and I look to them. Just look at Chief Justice Sotomayor. I was reading her story. She grew up in a poor section of New York City. Her father was an alcoholic. He died very young, I think of alcoholic poisoning. But she managed to not only graduate from high school, but to go to Princeton and Yale, and she's the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. She's the first woman of color. So I was inspired by a lot of people prior to Sotomayor. Dolores Huerta, Susan B. Anthony, Sojourner Truth, Cesar Chavez. Lots of other people inspired me. Use whatever you can to inspire you. Think about what I said, that unasked questions always know. I want to end with what happened when I went to Wisconsin. And I was there 5 years. 5 years in the snow. I learned to ice skate and cross-country ski. I used to run across the frozen lakes because it was kind of like running on a beach, you know, the snow on the lake. But I was really thinking about, you know, what I was going to do next. But along with that, my family was like, hello, come home. Hello, we need you. Hello, when you coming home? And my dad was so angry that I left, he hardly spoke to me. He wrote me a letter. Now, that man never writes. He wrote me a letter. What am I going to do without you? We need you. Please come home. Your brother and sister are in trouble. Your mother and I don't know what to do without you. When you get that kind of letter, you know, all I could do is like, I'm in the middle of class. I just burst out crying. And I just said, gotta stay here, Dad. He goes, all right then. Harley didn't pay for me to come visit once, not once, in those 5 years. I had to get the money together to do it. So, I At the end of 5 years, I get my degree. I'm Dr. Carla Trujillo, right? So here's the irony, and this is why I'm telling you. If you think your family might have an issue or two about you jumping to Davis, or jumping to UCLA, or Merced, or Berkeley, or even as far away as Wisconsin for undergrad or grad school, Michigan, Harvard. I applied to all those schools in Boston too. I wanted to jump across this country and explore something new. But parents sometimes are like, Mija, stay home, okay? Stay a little closer. Can't you just, my father was like, couldn't you just go to Stanford? What is wrong with Stanford? And I said, well, nothing's wrong with Stanford, but it's not where I wanted to go. So at the end of it, I come home. I took a picture, you know, because I didn't like my high school photo. And so I took another picture and I had sent it. Got my picture done, and unbeknownst to me, my parents took my picture and put it in the Vallejo Times-Herald, which is the local newspaper, and they wrote an article. I don't know how they got this published. Carla Trujillo receives her PhD at the University of Wisconsin. She studied educational psychology, blah, 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 blah. Little article, it's got my cheesy picture. And then I come home and they show me this, and I go, oh God. I'm so embarrassed, I hope nobody sees that. My dad cuts out the picture. He's still working at CNN Sugar Refinery, and he puts it in his locker. Now they all have lockers, you know, because they got to take their showers because they get all sugary and stuff like that. So any poor soul within 10 feet of that locker was called over. Hey, come over here. Hey, come here, I want to show you something. He opens the locker. See that picture there? That's my daughter. She's got her doctor's degree. And then he would just jabber, jabber, jabber. It's a poor soul. All the time. We go out in public. Hey, come over here. This is my daughter. And he put his arm around me. She's got her doctor's degree. She works at Berkeley. And I was like, oh God, we've created a monster. To this day, he'll still do it. When I was teaching on campus, hey, she's teaching at Berkeley. So my lesson to you is, and now my sister and brother, they don't think I'm a freak. In fact, talk to your Auntie Carla because she went to college. She'll help you go to college. Now my nieces and nephews and cousins. So if you decide to go from Merritt for your institution, wherever you go, you are going to be the vanguard of not only whatever change you confront, like my boss who's discovering the planets, but you're going to be the vanguard in your family, and it's going to be tough. It's never going to be easy. And remember when I worked in that as a janitor, and if you're thinking, Carla did it as a janitor, she worked as a janitor, she also was like a TA, so don't forget, there's all these great jobs out there. Remember, your family will always come back, and they're going to be so proud of you for what you achieved. And they too will probably get your picture and put it on their lockers, you know, and call everyone around and say, come look, this is my daughter or my son, and look at the degree he or she has. Thank you very much.
Our next speaker will be Hawa Rahimi, a young talented photographer, poet, and artist from the Bay Area. Being a young woman who loves art and videography, she continues to stand her ground in male-dominated career. She is an advocate and supports the movement of Merritt College to empower women. Please welcome Rahimi, Miss Rahimi.
I've never spoke on a mic before. This is legit. Bear with me because I'm going to read this off my phone. But I just just wanted to say hi everybody first. I wanted to start by saying thank you to you guys for having me here. I definitely think that opportunities like these are the better parts of my career because a chance to speak and relate to a whole bunch of new faces. My name is Hala Rahimi, and I'm a director and photographer that goes by the brand name Cool Reeve. I've had the pleasure of working with some talented people and wanted to share some things that I believe were important in my journey to hopefully inspire any women who are about to start their own. My whole life, I've been blessed to be around some amazing women, a mother who later took on the role of dad too when my own father went overseas, a group of 8 best friends who are now sisters that have had my back for the last 10 years, and another artist who has become a mentor as well. Anyone in this entertainment industry will agree that it's plenty of hard work and sacrifice. Being a woman in the entertainment industry is a whole other ballgame. And it's a different ballgame for reasons you guys may have already thought of, just given the way that society works right now. I don't say that to scare off any potential interest any of you may have in it. I say that to remind you that even though it might be harder for us, we are equipped to do it if it's in our hearts, no matter what. I started my brand about 4 or 5 years ago. My father didn't understand what I wanted to do with my career. My mom didn't understand either, but the difference is she didn't question it. She supported it, and she ended up buying me my first camera. My first photo shoot was with my best friend, one of the 8 that I mentioned. My first video was a collaborative effort with another close friend of mine, and it was really because of other women believing in my dreams that I was able to get the ball rolling. And a large part of why I'm able to do what I'm doing right now, just kidding. Is to be a reminder to all women out there that this is absolutely your world. You create what you want, you believe what you want to believe in, and you be who you've always wanted to be. If I can leave you guys with anything this Women's History Month, it's this. We have 31 days in March, and the rest of your lives to remind yourselves of the inequality our sisters have fought in the working world so that people like myself can do what I'm doing. The rest of your lives to celebrate the strong women around you. And the rest of your lives to remind yourselves that you are unstoppable in this world and you absolutely define who you are. Thank you very much.